29.
25, bros.
Oh, 25.
We're live now, Tiora.
Why? We're live. We're live for Jungle Brothers JB podcast, JB Tribe podcast.
JB Cast.
JB Cast. We're live on the JB Cast. And we are JB Cast number 25, not 9.
25. 25.
And we're here with Chad Rogers. Chad is one of the very few personal trainers that makes a lucrative living and very passionate about what he does, travels the world doing what he does. We've got a topic of conversation that we'll be coming back to through this podcast, which is all about gaining lean muscle mass.
The Holy Grail.
The gains, bro. The gains.
Or mass. And it's a question we get asked regularly in the gym. And it doesn't come across in our ethos about building muscle, but it's ingrained in what we do. And it'll be good to talk to one of the experts about it and see if we can bust up some of the myths and get a different perspective on a certain style of training. So, Chad, do you want to give us a little bit of a background on yourself and where you come from and what you do?
Yeah, so I've been a trainer for a long while. I think 14 years. I started in Newcastle, small town, well, not small town, pretty big town, north of Sydney, and I worked in like a performance centre where basically athletes came in to get rehabbed. They were given a program by a physio, and I just kind of babysitted them through that program. I think that helped me a lot because most trainers tend to go from Cert 3, Cert 4 into a big box gym, commercial gym, not probably really known enough to be able to do anything substantial. So before I was let loose on my first big box gym experience was Darlinghurst Fitness First.
It's where we met.
Yeah. I did that grounding in basically an environment where I had a compliant client and I had a physiotherapy designed program. And I think that helped me a lot. It's definitely a very unique starting point for a PT.
I was talking to you, we were discussing a very similar scenario with Paul yesterday. He was talking about a client of his that came to him, wants to put on some muscle mass, and Paul was talking about laying down some form of foundation before you start to clad on the muscle. Would you look at like that original form, like a physio program that you had, would you use it as a tool like that, or is it just an insight into...
I will tell you now that it's a lot. 14 years ago is a long time, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff has changed since then. And also, I tend to believe that your field of vision is what affects your style of what you do, yeah? So physios tend to see people with injuries. So physios would say they would view the shoulder as a fragile joint, right? Now you guys are...
Because I only see broken ones.
Yeah. So you guys are doing jiu-jitsu, you're flipping people around, you're doing your probably your overhead lifts. You guys do the compounds and the Olympic lifting. I don't really do that. You're doing handstands, and you guys are maybe thinking the shoulder, it's not that fragile. Pretty robust joint, really. Yeah. It might be the most mobile joint in the body, and you could possibly argue that it's the most fragile joint in the body. But is it a fragile joint? My answer would be like, fuck no. Like, look at MMA, look at rugby league. You get a lot of shoulder injuries, but you got a 120 kilo dude crashing into your shoulder. If it was that fragile a joint, everyone would be walking off halfway through the mat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Injured. So I think, physio is something that you should be working with allied health on all levels. Even the best PTs in the world should be collaborating. There's not enough of that. But I do think that you get a clash of physios are basically designed to get you out of pain. Whereas my specialty is I want my client to be able to bench 140. So you're looking at, I need you to have a healthy shoulder to do that, don't I?
Yeah.
But the way I look at you getting a healthy shoulder is completely different to the way a physio would view a healthy shoulder. I
And probably different to the way that we would take the same process or the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, in my opinion, you only need as much mobility that's appropriate to what you want to do. So you could argue probably that if I want to maximise hypertrophy and I want to bench 200, then I'm probably better off to be a bit less mobile.
Yeah.
For the newer individuals out there, we're talking hypertrophy, we're talking muscle growth.
Yeah, so...
Could I, sorry to butt in, could we say that is, would you say that's your specialty, muscle growth, or would you say more of the strength aspect? Just to give a bit of context there.
I don't like to box myself in like that because I get bored doing one thing, you know. So I train athletes, I train rehab. I don't really have a specialty.
Yeah.
I mean, I would get bored doing the same thing over and over again. So I like to challenge myself by doing lots of different stuff. There's certainly a lot better bodybuilding coaches than me because they specialise in that. There's certainly a lot better strength and conditioning coaches than me, people like Clint, who I'm sure you guys have a thing with.
We know Clint, yeah.
Shout out Clint Hill.
You know, so I blend, you know, because I get bored. So I wouldn't class myself as a bodybuilding or a hypertrophy coach or a rehab coach I kind of do a blend of everything because that's just, I don't really want to have a niche. I want to get bored.
Yeah.
I think that makes me a better coach, but, you know, like if my client's prepping for a comp and he gets injured, I've got a bit of an idea how I might be able to train around it.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm just a purely a bodybuilding prep coach and I'm looking at things like...
Train through it.
Yeah, I'm maybe not as able to help them in that regard. So, yeah, there's definitely people who specialise in all those fields who are a lot better than me. But the big thing is I collaborate with those kind of people.
Right.
So, you know, I got coaches like people like Chris Thomas, Charlie Duca, that I'm not scared to go, okay, I don't know this. I'm going to ask them what their take would be on that, or, you know, if I wanted to ask Clint.
Charlie Duca's a strictly bodybuilding coach.
Well,
would you
pretty
say?
much, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you would say that, but
In a traditional
Charlie
sense?
is, to me, more of a people person. So, yeah, he's one of the best bodybuilding coaches out there, but Charlie's just the kind of person who knows people.
Get the best out of them.
Yeah, no matter what. To me, he was like a father figure. You know, he just someone that, is incredibly motivating to be around. And I think that's probably one of the things that makes him good at coaching anyone, is even though he might be a specialist bodybuilding type trainer, he's the kind of person who, I mean, you guys are 4 times world champion. You know,
Yeah,
you
right.
come to the train with a 4 times world champion, you're going to push that bit harder. Just that respect level from someone who's achieved something like that is...
World champion what?
world champion bodybuilder.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So, and IFBB Pro, and yeah, he's, you know. So yeah, if you train with someone that's got charisma or that has a really good record, and that, it's kind of motivating you to train a bit harder. So, I think that's another reason why I'm a big believer in trainers should look a certain way. You know.
Yeah.
If you want to, like, I don't compete, but obviously if people are going to come to me looking for a coach who might be able to get them on stage, then I don't want to look like fat and don't train.
If you haven't seen a picture of Chad on our Instagram yet, he's about double my width and triple my thickness, and probably quite a few percent body fat percentage less than...
So, yeah, I mean, and I've been the same, like, you would have known me before too.
Yeah.
I've probably had this similar condition and similar size, for 10, 20 years,
Yeah.
I've knocked on stage, but I'm never out of shape. And I think that's a personal choice for me, because I like that, but I think it gives you credibility.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I agree.
you're-
I think we feel the same way. Well, it just means you're practicing what you preach.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah.
You know?
I mean, do I want to go to a dentist who's got tooth decay visible? No. I'd be walking straight out of that dentist, wouldn't I? So, I don't know. You can argue that technically, if you're a good coach, of course. But I think you just have a little bit more credibility if you look the part.
So Joey was talking about hypertrophy, and what exactly is it? Like on a doesn't have to be a cellular level, but what's happening when your body
Well,
goes into hypertrophy?
keep it simple for everyone. It's basically you've got more, you call it muscle protein synthesis versus muscle protein breakdown. And you're trying to have more of one than the other. But let's keep it simple for everyone. We're saying we're having more repair than we are damage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the body adapts to things. So you hurt the body and the body adapts by getting increased muscle. Or the body adapts. Like scar tissue is a thickening of the skin, isn't it? So basically you cause a stress in the body reacts to that stress. So hypertrophy is probably summed up as a balance between your repair is exceeding your damage. That's probably a real simple way to put it for everyone.
Which
I think.
in sort of simple terms means that you're building more muscle.
Yeah. So you're trying to
By damaging muscle to build more
yeah,
muscle.
I mean,
in a way.
again, it gets complicated because there's different methods of hypertrophy. So
You don't always have to damage a muscle to grow it, is what you mean?
Yeah, and it's definitely when you're looking at those higher rep ranges, you're looking at a different type of hypertrophy, and then you've got different things like tension and that come into the equation. So people tend to normally view hypertrophy as, I damaged the muscle, I tore it down, and it repaired itself stronger. Well, there's a lot of theories, and there's 4 main reasons you get bigger, but I think to keep it simple for everyone, you're looking at creating more repair than you are, or more growth than you are damage, or your growth exceeding your stimulus, or you've got just enough stimulus to cause the body to be able to adapt to that. Yeah, so...
So when we talk hypertrophy, and this is something that you specialize in, what would you say are the key components? Because I mean, everyone's looking for that secret sauce,
Volume is number one.
Yeah, give it a little more information on that.
If I was looking at just strength, just progressive overload, right? Yeah, progressive overload means getting stronger, yeah? So I could squat 1 set of 2 reps per week, and I could progress that every week, but I'd never get any bigger.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you'd be getting stronger, but not bigger.
Yeah, you probably would find it hard to even get stronger with that little volume, yeah?
Yeah.
So you're probably looking at volumes, one thing. You need to be doing enough sets. And then the next thing would be the intensity or the progressive overload. Okay, so you need to do enough exercises, and then they need to be done at enough intensity or in a progressive phase. And then you're looking at the frequency after that. So how many times can you do that to maximise that? So I mean, really, if I can train a body part 3 times a week, that's frequency, and I can get away with that frequency, then I'm going to create more growth, aren't I?
Right.
Does that make sense? So, yeah, it's hard, but I would say volume's your number one thing. If you don't do enough reps and enough sets, you're never going to grow. And then the sets have to be hard enough. And then you've got to look at, okay, so how many sets can I do before it becomes a problem and I can't repair or progress? Yeah, and that's why that is varies wildly from person to person, depending on so many things. Depends on their lifestyle, their nutrition, their stress levels, whether they're injury prone or not. There's so many variables that
Gene.
come into play. Genetics, number one.
Yeah, it's
Bro,
a big
genetics
one,
don't count for shit,
You know,
says the white guy.
so there's lots of different factors. But for me, volume. You need to be doing enough sets.
Right.
And enough sets on a particular body part. The old adage of, if you squat, you'll get bigger all over in the body, just it's completely not true. You know, if you're not training a muscle, it won't grow.
Can I ask you, like, when you have new clients looking for this goal, is it difficult? Like, can you just speak on like some of the experiences you have with getting them off and started? Given that, like you said, there's quite a few methods of building muscle, and there's so many different factors.
No.
You find it takes like a whole bunch of sessions of trial and error and digging in the history, or do you find like you've done it so much now, it's easy for you to tell what's
Usually at first it's pretty easy because it's just a change.
Yeah.
So if I've been doing a single body part split, and I've been training, typical one is I've been doing the body part split 12 to 14 reps for the last 3 years, and I'll stop growing. So it's easy to get a change in that person because you might just go, all right, we're going to do high reps and we're going to train twice a week. And just because that stimulus is so different, instantly you get a change. Everyone's like, I'm a miracle worker, you know. It's like, well, no, you just created a completely different stimulus, and of course that's going to work. I think the difficult bit comes in, all right, so 4 or 5 programs down the track, how do you
keep growing?
keep growing?
Yeah.
So, the first time it's usually pretty simple because you just look at, okay, the person was doing this. If I do something different, it's going to cause a change.
How about for I guess that's the same for people, first timers who haven't come from a plateau or anything, and they're just like, okay, I'm starting from ground zero here. I guess that's different there.
But you got your newbie gains, you know. So,
Newbie game.
when you're a newbie, any program works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you get a newbie who's never trained before. If he does push-ups, he'll get a bigger chest. We get some growth in the chest, won't he, you know. So, but if you've got a bodybuilder and you bring him in, he does push-ups, well, you know, if he can bench 140, the push-ups aren't going to do anything, are they? So, with a new person, I think one of the big things that trainers make mistakes is they make a beginner's program difficult. It's like, dude, where are you going to go in 4 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks when you've already given them a complicated program to start with? You know? Mate, if I'm a beginner and I do chin-ups, walking lunges and push-ups, boom, bang, off we go. That's great.
More likely to stick with it and see it through.
Well, it's just part of the problem is people don't look at getting better, you know?
Where's the progress down the track?
So if I chop and change all the time, how do I actually get better at pull-ups? How do I actually get better at deadlifts, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm chopping and changing my program. And I think a lot of trainers they're entertaining their clients, you know? What do you want to do this week? Let's do something new. Well, that's great, you know? And sometimes that actually creates a lot of soreness because it's a new movement pattern. But, you know, that's not the same as grinding out and going from a 120 deadlift to a 240 deadlift over 6 months. That's where you're going to get your big change. But that's not as much fun as...
It sounds fucking horrible.
You know, so in a way, I think
at all.
one of the things I've done lately is my programs are a lot more simple than they used to be. And I don't really do the drop sets and the supersets and all that kind of stuff. I just look at basic straight sets with a really long rest break.
How long?
It depends, you know, probably for someone like me, I reckon I need about 6 minutes on a lot of big compounds.
Holy shit.
Oof.
What kind of numbers are you lifting to have to like grace off a rest period like that?
Can I just ask you, sorry to interrupt, can you just lean into the mic a little bit more?
Okay,
Yeah, get
cool.
in there.
Look, I'm not the strongest guy. I never have been because a little bit injury prone from when I played rugby union, but my maxes are a 240 deadlift, a 165 bench, and I don't really squat because I get sore knees, but I've squatted 180 before. So they're not big numbers at all. But
They're big numbers in our gym.
Yeah.
but
Depends who you hang out with.
like
Come
if
to
you
my
looked
jiu-jitsu
at,
class.
you know, I could say I'm doing dips with 220 kilo plates, and then I'm doing 120 kilo incline bench press. Then I'm doing the stack on cable row, and you know, you're accumulating a fair bit of fatigue through, especially the shoulder joint and things like that, by consistently doing numbers like that. You know, so yeah, I mean, I get for me, I would say I've maxed out my size potential as well. Yeah, I don't think I could get much bigger. Yeah, so
Could I ask, you were saying before about the, you know, for figuring out those three things, the volume and the intensity and the frequency, and, you know, if you have the right sort of mix, or, you know, you set those variables up correctly, then the person, you know, should gain mass. Outside of the gym, so besides the training itself, what are the other, like if you boil it down, what are the other areas that are required in order to gain muscle mass?
well, most people would look straight away at protein, but I think, you know, there's not many people that, you know, besides maybe women who are new to training, I don't think there's many people that don't get enough protein. You know, so if you ask me, the number one thing I would look at would be recovery, rest, and nutrients. Yeah, because I just think, you know, every dude's straight onto his protein shake the minute he walks out of the gym. Even that's almost funny enough where people tend to start. I'm not training hard, but I've gone to the gym and I've got some protein powder. You know,
It's easy to buy.
So I don't think that many people need to look at their protein. I think most people are having adequate protein. So if you ask me, you know, I'd be looking at water intake and sleep.
Quality of the sleep and
Yeah, you know,
stress levels and
that tends to be
How much sleep in general is someone looking for?
Well, geez, I reckon as much as you can. If you're training really hard, life's stressful, isn't it? How many people would you know that have too much sleep?
Besides Marco,
Marco.
nobody else.
Yeah, I was going to say Marco.
I would say I think sleep is the new frontier, man.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think sleep is
We're
the
coming back
thing
to it.
that people are going to be looking at a lot in the next couple of years.
Sleep gyms, they're out there.
There's fads, yeah, you know. We always go through fads of whatever's popular at the time, but sleep is not going to be
Hang on,
We just lost Chad.
we're back.
Yo,
Yeah, so I think, yeah, you know.
sleep is the new frontier, you're saying?
Yeah, and I think, so when you sit down with your average person that wants to put on muscle, yeah, the first thing they tend to look at is the exercises.
How much training right
And no, but the particular exercises.
Okay, yeah.
And
Is this a muscle building exercise?
and things like
that question.
supplements, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, to me, they're like, you know, right down the track. Like, yeah, if I do say hip thrust, which is a great exercise for females for the butt, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm not sleeping right, if I don't drink enough water, if I don't have nutrition right, if I don't have the frequency, like if I do hip thrust once a month, it's not going to do anything. If I don't have the volume, so if I'm not doing more than one rep of hip thrust, then it doesn't matter how good the exercise is. So when you look at the things that most people look at are the exercise selection and supplements, to me, they're probably the least important things. You know what I mean? Like if I got a good bodybuilder and we just did, say, deadlift, seated row, and incline bench press, and we smashed it on those, and we had different frequencies throughout the week on those three exercises, and he ate perfect and he slept perfect, he probably do a lot better than most people would on a complicated program. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I just think that people look at the wrong things and place the most important thing on. The most important thing is my protein shake, and if I'm doing an incline dumbbell curl. You know, whereas to me the most important thing is, are you sleeping and do you have enough water?
Assuming that the training is in place correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, really, if the training's in place correctly, but they're not looking at the simple things, and they're nowhere near going to reach their potential. You know?
What about, sorry to cut, what about on top of that, the quantity of food? Do you find, I mean, because I just noticed, say, within our, within our community, because bodybuilding as a culture is not doesn't have a strong influence here. Eating sort of, I would say bodybuilders eat a lot. If we were to generalize, right? Eating is a big part of the pursuit. So it's usually something you need to be disciplined around. And I think most people who are trying to put on mass find that really hard. Do you to eat that much?
Yeah. So then you get into the more elite field, right? So your average gym goer doesn't need to eat that much because they just don't train hard enough, and they're not. When you start to throw steroids and things to the mix, then you're creating a different environment where you need a lot more of everything, except for protein, but we can talk about that later. But I think, how many guys in the gym do you know that are growing well, but they take the shirt off and they look great? So I would argue that most people are probably carrying a little bit too much body fat and they're eating too much. There's not many guys out there you see that are... How many people do you see that are shredded, that are natural, that are growing? There's plenty of bulky guys that look good with a shirt on that are throwing around some heavy weights in the gym that are probably eating too much. You know what I mean?
It's a bit of a paradox, though, isn't it? To get the body to grow, but not put on body fat. I guess that's the puzzle when you're dealing with a bodybuilder that wants to go in a competition.
That's where I think you got to go through phases.
Right.
So you got to have distinct phases, where for the next 12 weeks we're getting bigger, and then we go through a phase where we lean out a little bit and we have a look at what we've done.
And you cut.
And we make sure we don't accumulate too much fat that way. So, I think also, your body adapts to whatever you're doing, so it's good to go through cycles of, this is all about hypertrophy, okay, now we're trying to get a bit leaner.
So let's say you've got all your macros in place, you set your calories at whatever it is, and that's all in place, and the training's in place. What's your take on supplementation, and where does that fit in with, say, your clients and yourself?
Oh, it's a very small part. Yeah. So sometimes you look at something like a protein shake. Well, they taste nice, and they're real easy. So when it comes to making everything nice and easy to follow, it's a good choice. If I blend up a banana, some honey, and a protein shake, that's going to taste like beautiful, yeah? The flavours I have now are really good. And if you've got a busy person, that's going to help them to hit their calorie target very easily. So for convenience, something like that's really good. But apart from creatine, and then you got your vitamin D, your magnesium, and a few other little things like that.
What's a vitamin D for?
Vitamin D does a lot of things, I just think that people don't get enough sun exposure to get adequate levels of vitamin D. So the two main supplements that you're going to find deficiencies in Western society, Western society, Middle East, and a lot of cultures, is vitamin D and magnesium. So almost all my clients will be taking those two things.
The vitamin D one's super interesting. I remember when I had a skin cancer check, I was talking to the doctor about that, and he said, most Australians are deficient in vitamin D, but we have a problem with skin cancers. It was like, fuck. So he didn't see a solution.
Yeah, so I think supplementation is a solution with that one.
That's a pill form?
Vitamin pill D? Or a drop.
Right.
Yeah, I tend to go pretty high on that too, maybe 2,000 to 4,000 IU, depending, every second day.
So that's like a couple of pills, or?
Oh yeah, or drops. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I do every second day. So it's a fat soluble vitamin, so you tend to store it a little bit better than a water soluble vitamin. Also, I think sun exposure is a little bit up and down. You know, the weather changes. Some days it's cloudy, some days it's not. Some days outside, some days it's not. So, to me, a more natural way to expose yourself to vitamin D, if you were trying to copy what you would get in normal life, is that kind of some days you get a bit more sun, some days you don't.
What about all the other stuff? You know, you walk into like an ASN or
Oh yeah.
Muscle Mart or whatever it is, and there's just fucking aisles and aisles.
Big dudes and heaps of
aisles.
products.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And every
Stuff.
product you're like, fuck, I feel like I need it. What does it do?
Let's get
probably,
some Jack guy on the front, shredded.
probably.
Have mirrors in there so you can look at yourself.
Skinny mirrors. I look like a
Comparison
dweeb.
Probably not necessary for most people.
Yeah.
Man, you got to look at your food, you know. We want to get what we can from our food primarily, you know. It's different. There's so many advantages. Like, I mean, you got your thermogenic effect of food, the amount of calories you burn digesting food, yeah? So you look at a steak, you know, compared to a protein shake. And you look at all the good stuff you get in the steak compared to a protein shake. And then you look at that thermic effect of food and you're thinking, you know, it's one of the reasons why I really don't like it if it fits your macros, because you can't compare 40 grams of protein from a steak to 40 grams of protein from a protein shake.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
It's nowhere near the same thing. You know, and you'll find the good bodybuilders, man, they're all eating food. You know, you see them with their Tupperware and
That's the discipline, isn't it? The training part's easy.
they're getting the majority of their nutrients from food. They might be doing their supplement ads for their sponsor,
Yeah.
but, you know, what's making them grow is the steak and the chicken and the rice, not the test booster or the, well, you know, the shake.
Can I ask about amino acids? Hoax or not?
Oh, totally. I don't believe in amino acids at all. There's a lot of reasons why. I think your body needs a whole protein to make muscle. So picking out a few aminos and putting them into the body and expecting the body to make muscle without the full spectrum of aminos is kind of a bit of a fucking confusion for the body, really.
Mm.
Yeah, so definitely not a fan of aminos. For me, I think if you were going to have a protein, you'd have your whole protein and preferably from whole food. Yeah.
So for someone starting out, if you need the protein powder, get your diet in place first.
Yeah.
If you need the protein powder if you can't get your shit together to get your food
Yeah.
prepped, then have something there available to make up the deficit.
Yeah.
Magnesium,
Definitely.
vitamin D.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, maybe
Nothing
fish
else.
oil.
Fish oil.
Yeah, those three are pretty much standard.
Can you tell us about the magnesium? I know we sell that. I use it. We recommend it to everyone. Every coach that I've ever respected has recommended, you know, a naturopath or doctor has said use magnesium.
Yep.
Do you know why it is that we are deficient in it these days?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, I'm not like an agriculturalist, but I'll give you an anecdotal explanation for that, right? So I go to Thailand a lot, and you eat the fruit and the vegetables over there, it tastes totally different. You know, like you eat a mango over there, it's half the size and tastes completely different. You eat pineapple over there, it's this incredibly sweet, juicy,
It's like in Fiji. There's
you
pineapple.
know, and I think a lot of stuff over there is grown more naturally. So I think, you know, and there is research that says that there is not the same quality or quantity of micronutrients in the food now as there used to be.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were getting these things in our diet, or we were working outside, we were doing more manual labour, so we were getting exposed to vitamin D more, and we had a better source of food that had more in it.
More
As
nutrient
far
dense.
as, yeah, so I think that's where your requirements for those kind of things come from.
Mm.
In a perfect world, you wouldn't think you needed any supplements, would you, you know?
Mm.
But this is not the case. So, and I think yeah, especially things like iron and things you want to not just chuck it in. You probably want to get blood work done before you start throwing a whole heap of supplements to someone as well. You know, it's not that difficult. It's something I'm surprised more people don't do. You know,
Blood work.
yeah.
I've never done it before.
You know, like, it's your body. Well, once or twice a year, get your bloods done. I think,
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I've never done it before in my life.
especially as you
Kind
get
of like
older,
an oil check.
especially as you get older, like, and how often do you take your car in for a service? You know?
Regularly.
But you don't get your blood work done. It's crazy, you know? So,
Where do you get it done?
It's a good point. I feel like it's that the thing is with the car, it's easy. You take it in, you give it to the mechanic, they deal with it, they give it back to you, pay them. When you do your blood work, you go in, you get given the data, they tell you the thing, and then you're like, all right, now I got to go about changing habits or buying some supplements, and I think that side of the things is just, it's a bit of a hill for people, and it's like, oh, fuck it.
yeah, but
the
I
longer you
don't get
leave
that.
it, the more chance there is that you're going to hear something you don't want to hear as well.
It's
you know?
true.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can get another car, you know, easy.
Yeah.
You can't get another body. You know,
Not yet.
most people know more. Most people know more about their mobile phone than they do about what they put in their mouth.
True.
And that's crazy. So, you know, I think it's beyond most PTs to delve into that for starters, right? But, you know, I think if you get a progressive GP and you get some blood work done, it's a good place to start. And then if you're a PT, you might want to enter into a dialogue in a very conciliatory way with the doctor of, okay, doc, thanks for your help with the blood test. What's your advice? And
Are we
then-
talking like on a client basis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll even go to the doctors with my clients sometimes and sit down and talk to the doctor and go, what can we do, doc, you know?
Mm.
And the doctor's like, whoa, this never happened to me before, you know? And I'm thinking, well, it makes sense to me. Collaboration.
Yeah, it's interesting because
It's
there's
everything.
there's a bit of a rift between what we do as coaches and what medical practitioners do, but really is we both have the same intention. I guess we're more towards the side of, or we look at ourselves as preventative, whereas they're looking for cures for things that are already already happened, or the things that are already kind of wrong with somebody.
Yeah, they're reacting.
Yeah,
You're already sick.
yeah,
So let's not get sick in the first place, you know?
yeah,
But I don't know if there's much money in that.
yeah.
But I think, yeah, you know, getting your blood work done regularly may help to prevent sickness, or it may help you to prevent something you have that comes up in your blood work from getting worse. Or so, yeah, I think you send clients to me, you know, and I'm not looking at, all right, how much can I smash you? And, you know, I'm looking at, all right, do you sleep good? Do you drink enough water? Do you have a good sex drive? I think sex drive is important, you know. If a female has a low sex drive, to me, that's a high indication of something wrong. How would our species live if we as a species had a low sex drive? We wouldn't survive.
How do you test for that with your clients?
We just ask them, you know.
You get in the morning glory.
Yeah,
That's
That's a really good one,
Yeah.
bro. You know, if your testosterone's optimal, you're waking up with a heart on, bro.
the teepee.
You know, you should be.
Sleep naked.
I know I do. I know I do.
So,
Oh yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, me
I'll see you guys at 5.
So when someone walks in, you know, I mean, it would be great if you go, right, go get the pathology done, go get your physio to have a look at your body, and then I've got a pathology report, I've got a DEXA scan, I've got a physio report. That would be the optimal scenario. You've got all this data before you even start. And that's what should happen.
How often do you get that?
Well, I used to do that a lot in Sydney.
You used to kind of demand it with
Yeah,
certain clients, like I'll work with
yeah.
you on these conditions. We do it right.
Yeah. I used to do that a lot.
It gets people to opt in a lot
Yeah.
too. Like if you do that, if you go out and get all those
Commitment.
tests, it's a fuck commitment. It's like, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
Well,
buy in.
but you got to look at, all right, I was working in Darlinhurst, you had a high incidence of gay clients who are right into their body,
Bigger chest and bigger butt.
and they're also
where it's at.
dual income, no kids. You're looking at they've got the money for that, yeah.
More time on the hands.
So, if you're looking at your average client who's walking into Anytime Fitness in Parramatta and you say to him, all right, go and get all these tests done before we start training, you're not going to have a client, are you, And also then, you've got to look at training age too. So, if I'm someone like me, like, if you went off the guidelines from Fitness Australia, I'm over 45, I have a history of heart disease in my family. Technically, as far as Fitness Australia is concerned, I should have a doctor's clearance before you start coaching me.
Yeah.
Now, dude, I've been training for 20 years, and you want me to go to the doctors before I start training with you. So you got to factor in training age to that and some common sense. Because, you know what I mean? If someone has a high training age, why would they need to go and get a doctor's consent before they train? But so those guidelines are something that need to be a bit more flexible as far as what you look at before you send someone for tests. But you can't have too much tests, I don't think.
It's it makes me think about often when you get when we get new people starting here and they go through their foundation program with us, so they do some one-on-one sessions, and oftentimes the first thing that they'll say, they'll turn up for the first session, and they'll kind of have this expectation that you're going to smash them, and they'll be like, "Oh, I bet you're going to smash me today," or "Oh, I just know today's going to be horrible," and you know that they're talking, because of prior experiences that they've had with PTs. And we're always like, no, actually, today's going to be super mellow. We're going to talk a whole bunch. We're going to do a few tests. We're going to find out where you're at, how you move before we get into anything that's even remotely intense. And they're like, oh, like they're a little bit surprised by it. But it always makes me think that standard gym PT thing where it's like, you come to me for a session and I'm going to fucking wreck you on the treadmill and cardio circuits. And in a way, I'm like, fuck, those kinds of PTs probably should get doctor's clearance. Because if you're taking someone that's severely out of shape and just, like pushing them to the absolute limit, bad shit could happen.
I think you always got to look at it less is more, So if I can buy a TV for $600 or $800 and it's the same TV, then I'm buying the $600 one, So if I can get results with less training and less weight, then that's probably a good way to start. Because that gives me room to move and that gives me a safety buffer in regard to injury prevention. So, yeah, I think that's one thing that people make the big mistake is they start people off, right, we're going to do a 5-day program. Like, if you've never trained before, you should probably 1 or 2 days a week to start off with for the first month. And, yeah, you won't be able to walk probably. So if someone's coming to a PT and they've never trained before and they get a 4-day program from day one, that's crazy.
Yeah.
They need to back off, learn how to move and just do 1 or 2 days a week and they'll progress from that. And then when they stop progressing, you go 3 days. What do you do with your average client when they're already training 4 days a week? It starts to become, harder to progress. So I think going slower has a lot of advantages as far as giving you room to move in the future and preventing injury.
Get a little bit more time to adapt.
Yeah,
Yeah, we take a similar approach, probably not as extreme, but we definitely we push the intensity level that people work at when they first join the gym. Is one of the first things we say is all you have to do is get through the front door, and don't set any standards for yourself after that. Like, just come in, move a little bit, get used to the training, get used to the environment, and take your time, because it's like the start of a marathon more so than an 8-week challenge or something like that. We want that foresight that's going to be like, where's my body going to be in 10 years' time, and how's it going to be functioning if I'm hitting the ground sprinting on my first day of training? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think you got to manage that expectation, but too,
When you're
got to give them a little bit of what they want and what they need. So, just say I'm designing a program for a dude and he's come in and he wants to get bigger. Well, I'm thinking, okay, I need to check out a lot of shit before I smash you, right? But then you want to retain the client, yeah? So what I might do then is do what you said, we have a good talk, we see where they're at, make sure that there's no real things that are preventing us from training. But then I might smash them on biceps. So basically they're going to walk out, they're going to go, oh my God, that guy's really good, I'm sore, I can't move my arms. But they're not going to get injured on bicep curl.
Yeah.
And we've spent the majority of the time sussing out what they need. And so you can give them both if you're intelligent, You can give them a bit of both, give them a bit of... I think it's important too that people don't service the client. Like most people want to look better. And then they come to a trainer and the trainer's like, oh, well, I'm going to improve your functionality or... Yeah, but I want to look better. No one comes to a gym to look worse. And I think trainers have got this real thing about they don't want to be seen to be doing that.
Yeah.
Well, if someone wants to look better, help them look better. That'll improve their confidence.
Confidence is part of it. It's all part of it.
That will probably flow through till they start looking better, they start eating better, they feel more happy. And then you can get them move better because they trust you, because you service their goal. If I come into a gym to look better and you go, oh no, but you're not moving right, I'm like, I didn't ask for that. I wanted to look better. So you should be able to do both. You know what I mean? So, yeah, if you wanted to structure a session like in a gym like what you guys have got, you might do like a trap bar deadlift or a deadlift. Then you might do a single leg exercise like a Bulgarian split squat. And then you go, right, we're going to do barbell 21s. So you've given them a functional outcome, haven't you? But you've also given them what they need, what they wanted. What they wanted was bigger guns.
How does the barbell 21s go?
Well, like 7 at the bottom.
We do them on Swole Fridays.
Paulie's never hung out for a long time in a commercial gym. He didn't
Does that
live
make
life.
sense?
What's the format?
the only thing with that, and I totally agree, but it's, I guess, for us, looking at your clientele and our clientele are kind of different for the most part, right? And you don't look at us three and go, I want fucking big arms, so I'm going to go to those guys.
But you guys are servicing your clients based on what they want, aren't you?
Yeah, totally, but it also...
That's what I'm talking about. Like these people are getting clients who are coming to them saying, I want abs and I want biceps, whereas the vibe in here is different, People are coming here for something different. And you're giving them what they want, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're not giving them something different.
No, that's right.
So I'm talking about people who are getting them, especially in commercial gyms. The majority of people walk through the door of a commercial gym. They walk through there to look better. And then they're getting like screens so they can do overhead squats. Like, dude, who cares if I can do overhead squat or not? I want to look better so I can pull a chick on the weekend, Well, service the client. I'm a functional trainer, so it's like your goals are more important than the client's. How the fuck does that work? So yeah, should a client just do aesthetic training? Probably not. But if that's what they want, that should be a big part of what you give them. Don't make your goals more important than the client's goals, man. That's not on, I don't reckon.
Yeah, it's a great point.
And so I would think people that walk through the door of this gym are looking for something different. And you guys are giving them that. You're not giving them the opposite of what they're looking for. And that tends to happen so much, what do you want? I want to look better, but then you're going through all this functional movement screen and shoulder mobility and it's like, dude, put me on the leg press and the bench press and just give me a little bit of functional stuff at the end so I can move okay, I think if you train through a full range of motion and you do a little bit of free weights, you've got a more functional person. You don't have to go overboard with that.
No, I could agree with that.
You look at your average sedentary person who doesn't train, and then if you put them on a bodybuilder program, you've got a more functional person. Without a doubt. You don't have to, just because an exercise is mimicking movement in life, doesn't always mean it's the best choice. I think you got to think, all right. Or it's like how we used to train sports people. You know, you get them in the gym and you do like cable twisting movements for tennis.
Wood
yeah?
chop. Wood chop.
T
You know what I
fucking
mean?
loves a
Reverse
wood
wood
chop.
chop.
And the whole Paul Check style of training. And then what we found was everyone got weaker and no one progressed. And then all of a sudden went back to powerlifting.
Hyperfunctionality.
Yeah? Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I mean,
Yeah, the
what
pendulum
do-
swung,
what do you-
didn't it?
What do you think makes someone better?
Did I tell you the story I had with that CrossFit coach about rope slams years ago? It was we were talking. He was talking about training. I can't really remember. It was a group of us hanging around, and then he was ripping on rope slams. And I mean, we you know, I don't feel particularly passionate either way about rope slams, but he said, "Fucking rope slams, man. The only function that I can see a rope slam serving is if you were to like, you know how you like put a sheet on the bed and you like whip the sheet out onto the bed." And I was like, "Fuck, bro! Like
That is ridiculous.
Totally missed the point. Like you've jumped on that functional bandwagon so long ago, and you're so deep down the track. You know, like there was just too many things for me to address almost. And he ended up coming around to it. It's like, okay, maybe it's not that terrible.
That's one.
But it was just interesting, like the dogma behind everything has to replicate exactly what you're supposed to do in life.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're playing rugby league, you know, you're tackling people a lot, yeah? Do you need to tackle a dumbbell in the gym? Well, if you're doing tennis, if you're playing tennis, you're doing 10,000 rotations a week hitting the ball, aren't you? Do you need to do more rotations in the gym? You could probably argue that what you want to do in the gym is
It's
anti-rotation.
the opposite. Yeah.
Pallof press. And so I think we went too sport specific. And instead of, and then, you know, now let's just get the dude stronger. If you go through a period of strength training on basic movements and you don't lose mobility, that transfers into being a better person and a better athlete. You know, don't get caught up in the details. And again, if something's simple, then the person's able to do it better. There's less chance of injury, and that parlays into a stronger person and a better person, and that's functional, isn't it?
What do you think about handstands, Chad?
Yeah.
How they coming along?
Well, man, it's probably fun, but I can't think of anything less functional, you know? Unless you're not going to be able to use your legs. You're
It's
never
not going to get you out of a zombie apocalypse.
That's
for sure.
If you can't use your legs, then you want to start to walk on your hands. You know? So when
Good for
you-
Instagram.
But I mean, those things are fun, yeah? Like,
But that's context in itself, isn't it? Like you got to enjoy your training.
Yeah.
And if you're getting something out of
Yeah.
that, then it's good for you. You
I
know.
think there's a market for different stuff and fun, you know? Is it functional? No, but is it more fun than doing a shoulder press on a Nautilus shoulder press machine? Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
You could maybe argue that it's slightly more healthy for you based on the balance element and the stability element
I guess
Than
depending on who's doing it as well.
than the
lot of
machine
people that
shoulder
probably shouldn't do
press.
Mm.
For sure.
You can do it outside. You can do it with friends.
It'd be mad to see like a hammer strength handstand machine. You just fucking get in there and just fucking hold it.
Upside down.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with doing something for fun. You know? I think that's...
Hell no.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what
it's
most
gotta be
bodybuilders
engaging,
do.
right?
What they do. I mean, you got to enjoy that kind of sport to put that kind of pressure on your body. When you're dealing with hypertrophy, like let's say you're training someone for hypertrophy, and then you're training somebody for bodybuilding. What are the two differences there? Like we want to be, we get people in the gym want to get bigger. I know Joe's always on the big train. You know, I've
Massive.
gone on it plenty of times before, but I've never had any interest in being a bodybuilder. Do you see a difference between training somebody for hypertrophy or training somebody for bodybuilding competition, and what are they if you've got them?
I think it's completely different. I think for bodybuilding, you're looking at winning the poses.
Right.
If you win the poses, you win the show. So you're training to, you know, so from a side-on pose, you might be looking at hamstring and rear delt as very important muscles to give you thickness when you stand side on, yeah, to win that pose, right? Whereas I think for general hypertrophy, you know, you're just looking at, for, you know, let's be honest, for most people, it's a big upper body. Like, how many guys really want massive wheels and massive quads?
I wouldn't mind.
You know what I mean? But, you know, let's be honest, you know.
Around here they do. Only because we ridicule them if they got.
But you know what I mean? Like,
We call them Tiara.
So rude.
for a,
Small, but they're fierce, bro.
Bro, heaviest quads are Jungle Brothers.
for someone who just wants to look good, you're looking at more of a beach body, aren't you?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I gotta disagree in that regard because we only for us, for who we deal with, for what we're interested in, beach bodies are not a thing. And that's just because the stuff that we're interested in doing, like grappling and all those in Thai boxing, if you don't have, you know, mass and some stability down the bottom, it's not going to work out. You know, but I don't disagree with you that for the standard gym goer,
Yeah.
that it's like, look, I just want to look better at a bar.
Yeah,
you
for
know,
people that just want to look better. But again, that's not what you guys are about. You know?
Yeah.
You guys are making people, and I like the whole idea of that, what you guys do, you know. But again, that average person that just wants that beach body, he's not going to train somewhere like this, you know.
Yep.
He's going to want his machines, and he's going to want more mirrors. Where's the mirrors, guys? You know, that's probably the biggest thing. It's like, no mirrors here. I'm not training. So, yeah, you just got to look at servicing the client, and I think that just gets lost. You know, that if you are looking at the client as, you know, it's like if I went into a hairdresser and said, I want my hair blonde, and you went, no, I'm going to give you a crew cut instead. You know, well, that's not what I wanted. So you've got to service the client, but then you have responsibility as a professional to try and ingrain some basics of, yeah, it's okay to have big biceps, but do you do something for your lower back? You know? Do you do something to make sure you're ticking those boxes from nutrition, stress, things like that? That's what's important. It's important for you to have some ethics behind what you do, but it shouldn't come before what the client wants. You know, service the client, get their trust, and then move forward with what you think they need.
So, Chad, when you're, let's say we're moving into the bodybuilding realms, and I've watched you train bodybuilders before, and then I've seen, in comparison to like a traditional bodybuilding coach, there's a lot more, it seems like there's a lot more of a strength element. Like when you're talking these big numbers like 240 kilo deadlift, the first thing I think of are usually athletes or powerlifters, but the last thing that comes to mind is a bodybuilder. Do you have a different take on the way you train your guys up for comp, or is this something that's specific to you, or have I just kind of missed a jump in the evolution of bodybuilding training?
I think with natural bodybuilders, strength is far more important. And I train the majority natural bodybuilders. So how do you measure progression? And that's going to be measured by strength improvements on the big compound lifts. So for natural bodybuilding, that's just such a key element. You need to get stronger.
Yeah.
When you start to use anabolics, it's just not as important. You know, you can get bigger without that. Now, I'm not saying it's better if you do those kind of big movements and get stronger and take steroids in. That's going to create a better athlete without a doubt. But anyone would know that you don't need to do that. You just take more trend. Unfortunately, that's the way society is at the moment. Everyone's looking for a quick fix. And, you know, in bodybuilding, unfortunately, it's a lot easier to take a little bit more of a substance than it is to train harder. And it works. It's no doubt that if you take enough stuff, you will get growth, you know. So that tends to take away that element of hard training. But that doesn't apply to natural bodybuilders. If you're a natural bodybuilder and you want to get bigger, that's hard work, man. And your numbers need to go up. And as a coach, you should be looking at, how do I know my program is effective? Well, my client got stronger. There's got to be a measurable outcome, hasn't there? And the one way you measure that, and the best way to measure that, is improvements in strength.
Mm-hmm.
If I put on 5 kilos of muscle, I should be stronger. Otherwise, I've got some very unfunctional muscle hanging around my body. It's not contracting. It's not doing anything, So, yeah. For me, because I train majority natural bodybuilders, I think, it's much more important that they show improvement in their numbers, for sure. Plus, I just personally like that as well. I like to see someone, not all have a bit of go as well. Yeah, so...
Being around like the bodybuilding circuit and just witnessing changes that have taken place over the years and being involved in, putting people on stage in that. What do you think? Is there anything about the scene that you don't like, or that you feel needs to change, or?
There's too much drugs. Yeah, too many people take too much when you can get the same results with less. And then, you got people who, genetically, there's only a certain amount of people who are really going to make a name for themselves in the sport. But you've got a lot of people who are prepared to jeopardise their health to compete in a sport where there's no money, and genetically they're not really, let's be honest, going to go very far, but they're quite prepared to take huge amounts of substances. That's a big problem, I think,
Yeah.
And that's not even in the sport. That's even in, your festival trainers, people who are training just to look good, to go to a festival or go to the beach with their shirt off, and they're taking a lot of drugs and jeopardising their health just to look better on the weekend. It's like, whoa. I think mixing recreational drugs and steroids together for a long time, it's going to cause some problems down the track.
Cool.
And there's a big link these days between recreational drug use and bodybuilding.
Yeah, you see it a lot. Well, there was that. Was it Mitos? Was it Mitos? What's that guy's name that died in Thailand? Young fella.
Ziz.
Ziz. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. So
That kind of opened up a bunch of hot topics.
Yeah, so I think there is that definite link between steroid use and recreational drug use. And they're two things that probably shouldn't be mixed together,
Yeah, I barely take Panadol when I get a headache.
Yeah.
I tend to think I need to either sleep or have more fluids, things like that. So the idea of doing both of those would scare the shit out of me.
Yeah,
Anything that has freaking too many ingredients on it.
They tend to go hand in hand. I think.
Yeah, right.
Also, these days, people don't max out their natural potential before they take drugs as well. So I think definitely in the old days, people used to train for a fair few years. And then they go, all right, I might take the next step. And it was seen as a serious step to expose yourself to steroids.
Yeah, okay. Whereas now it's a little more socially kind of
now
acceptable.
it's just like every second guy in the gym's doing it. So I don't think people think twice about taking those things now.
It's less of a step and more of a shortcut.
Yeah, it's more of an expectation.
Yeah.
Oh, you've been training for 6 weeks, it's time for you to get in the gear, And that's probably not a good thing.
What about your experience, your personal experience with steroids? Have you used before yourself?
Yeah, of course. So you've got to be honest. I'll be open about that. I'm quite happy to say, I've tried a lot of things. I've also been on HRT, but I never had anything till I was 30.
Right.
And I'd trained for 10 years before then, So I don't think that applies to many people these days who have trained for 10 years, come from a sporting background, and then they take their first exposure to steroids at 30 years old. You know,
What would you, let's say we've got young aspiring athletes that are thinking about going down that path, because obviously it's something that's happening a lot. And I mean, you read in the papers, you can see it in most gyms you walk into, your standard gyms. What would you have to say to say a young fella that's thinking about going down that path?
yeah, I think if you're just looking to train, just max out your natural potential first. And then if you really, really had a decent go and you think you can't progress anymore and you're, personally I think you're over 25, then, have a think about a very, very small amount of that. I don't think is really going to be harmful at all. But yeah, people just don't take that approach.
What would like having a decent go be? Like you said, over 25, but say someone just started training at 25.
You
So
look at 1 or 2 mil of testosterone.
No, I mean like
Max.
maxing out the natural potential. Would
I
that,
think
you think
it'll-
like a couple of years of training
Just
consistently?
depends on, so how do you define if someone's a novice trainer or not? In my opinion, it means that they no longer respond in a linear fashion to a training program. So I know people that have been training in the gym for 10 years who are still novices because their training structure has been that bad.
Sure.
But I know people that have trained with a trainer for 3 months and they're advanced. Like if you train with a really good trainer 4 days a week for 3 months,
And you got the gene, and you got a
Yeah.
sporting background, and you got
Chances are-
nutrition, and you got your sleep.
chances are you need to start looking at a periodised program, So if you've just been fucking around in the gym and doing biceps, and you might be 3 years in, but you haven't gone anywhere near maxing out your potential because you've had no real structure to how you train. So I think a good definition of a novice is someone who needs some kind of periodisation in their program because they've stopped progressing. And that could be in many different timelines for that.
And then only once they've done some computerized programming for a few years,
Yeah,
you think that's kind of maxing out natural potential?
for sure. I think they said you should be able to put on about 10% over a certain amount of time, and that's your natural potential. So if you're naturally 50 kilos and you start training, you should be able to put on 5 kilos of muscle.
Okay.
And that's around roughly where you're at. But genetics plays a part in that.
Could be a
people
little more.
Yeah, but, any more
That's
than
where your
that-
body wants to. That's where your body's
Yeah.
happy to sit
Yeah.
before you start pushing it into a
Yeah.
place that it doesn't potentially want to hold on to,
Yeah. So roughly
almost in
10%.
an unnatural state.
When you
in a
think
way.
about it, 10% of your total body weight in extra muscle is not a bad
It's a lot.
little gain.
Yeah, it's visually
Oh,
a
yeah,
lot.
Totally.
I mean, 10% of the body weight is different to 10% of muscle.
Pure
Yeah,
muscle.
so
Yeah.
that's muscle. So that's what I would think from what I've read is whatever your weight was to start with before you started training, 10% of that as lean muscle on top of that, and that's about your natural potential.
That's a good little
Yeah.
number to work off.
I'm looking at 99 kilos.
Oh shit! Big coconut, bro.
Kilos.
Yeah, but
That
you
would
look
be
at people
me.
like Lottie
Just
Zakiri, and they said he put on an incredible amount of muscle in 2 months, but
Yeah.
you just don't know. I think most professional sports these days, the idea of whether they're actually natural or not is probably a bit sketchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at Serena Williams and Rafael Nadal.
Yeah,
Tell me that they've been natural their whole career. I'll be like, oh, okay.
yeah,
If you think so. Tennis players didn't look like that before.
yeah. Well, what's changed?
You
Well,
know?
You recently put up quite a heartfelt post up on Facebook that was you opened up about a few things in your personal life.
Yep.
Do you want to just have a little chat about that?
Yeah. So I had my prostate. So obviously we talked about before about blood work. So I believe in getting blood work done, so obviously I get my own done. And because I'm on hormone replacement therapy, one of the tests they do is your PSA. So my PSA was slightly high. They combined that with other tests like biopsies and MRIs and things like that. So they discovered a little growth, basically prostate cancer. And so the norm is, all right, we're going to take that out straight away. And then I was like, okay, well, shit, that's pretty young to be possibly having the implications that go along with that, which is, erectile dysfunction, blah, blah, things like that. So I looked into it a little bit more and I found that a lot of the new research is saying that maybe you're better off to just watch and see what happens before you act. And I think in the medical community, there's maybe a lot of that happens in the... and I don't want to tell anyone, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not telling anyone
Any recommendations?
how to recommend or what to do in their personal. But what I do recommend is investigate, Investigate your health yourself, Get second opinions. Don't always just jump at what the doctor says. Because it's your body. The doctor's seen maybe 100 patients that day, and when it's your body at stake, you want to be sure. So, there's a lot of emerging evidence that perhaps with prostate cancer, we don't always need to take the prostate out. We can have a little look at it and just make sure it doesn't progress, because the big danger is obviously that spreading from the prostate into other parts of the body. Yeah.
How long ago did you find that news out?
About 18 months ago. Yeah.
So what's happening at the moment, can I ask?
Constantly observing it, getting scans done to see if it's bigger, getting blood work done to see if your PSA is progressing. And I've got a little regimen I'm doing to try and prevent it, but I don't really want to talk about that because I think that I want to encourage people to self-diagnose or self-treat. If people wanted to PM me, I could maybe get into a chat about that, but given my status as a personal trainer, I don't think I should start talking about how to treat prostate cancer on a podcast. Fair, But one thing I would say is just if you get something or you have a health issue, investigate it yourself too,
Do you, I'm sure, look, the statistics of males getting prostate cancer is pretty high. But going back to your use of steroids, do you ever think that potentially the use of some kind of ergogenic or growth hormone over time is potentially added to the symptoms that you've got, or do you think that that's just something that's unrelated? Or
well, again, that's probably something I shouldn't talk about, but when do you normally get prostate cancer?
I don't know much about it myself.
It tends to be something you get when you're older, yeah? When your testosterone drops.
Yeah.
So there is some new evidence or theories or whatever you want to call it coming out that perhaps they could use higher testosterone as a way to fight the progression of the disease. But then if you're looking at substances like growth hormone and things like that, I think, the jury's out as to whether they actually might promote growth of
cancerous cells.
Yeah, so...
Just don't know enough.
Yeah, I think, But I wouldn't believe that just taking an anabolic substance like testosterone would increase your likelihood of prostate cancer. It definitely would increase your likelihood of prostate hypertrophy. But I don't see if that's a big thing.
Is that something for real?
Yeah, it's something for real.
Holy shit.
Totally.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So when they talk about the anabolic and androgenic effects of steroids, what they're talking about is the anabolic effect is the amount that particular steroid helps you grow, anabolic, and the androgenic effect is the effect it has on your body, as in hair loss, hair growth, And one of the things they use to measure that is increases in size of the prostate. So that's an androgenic effect from steroids. Yeah, so it's quite common for bodybuilders to get prostate hypertrophy, and obviously they need to wee a lot more due to that. Yeah, so again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not 100% up on that, but from what I know, I wouldn't think there's a direct link between anabolic substances and prostate cancer. No, but yeah, I don't know how much research there is on that, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think definitely these kind of things seem to be increasing in society. All different types of cancers, you know. So
number of different changes in the life of a human now, though, isn't there?
So
many
who
factors.
knows?
Yeah.
Where
Who
you
knows
live.
if there is a link?
We're living
or
for
not.
longer as well, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
What about like the life expectancy of a power athlete? Like, I've never really done any research on it, but there's always that talk about anyone that deals with like heavy lifting or explosive, 100-meter sprinters and rugby players, NFL players that the strain you put your body on over time ends up lowering your life expectancy. Is this just a myth, or is it something that
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it?
that these athletes know when they go in and they're like, right, they just take the glory over the potential,
I think it makes sense because what happens? Think about your typical, not typical because it's unusual, but you think about your average or the stereotype person who lives for a really long time is usually a real skinny, frail person, you know. And you look at your testosterone starting to drop around 30, so how many jack dudes do you see that are 80 and 90?
Yeah, it's true.
You know, so I just think part of the way the body survives is by reducing the amount of lean muscle.
It has
Does
to
that make
maintain.
sense? Yeah. Yeah, so, and, you know, you see a decline in your body's ability to build muscle as you get older, and I think there's a link between that and longer life expectancy. But
Putting
then,
less stress on
but then
the vitals.
you got to look at, all right, what's the difference between life expectancy and quality of life? So you go, right, well, I'm better off if I don't train and my metabolism's super slow and I'm a vegan and, yeah, all those things are going to mean I'm going to live longer, but well, what kind of life's it going to be? You know? If you're less robust, you're less strong, you know, you're avoiding things that might challenge your system a little bit more. You might live longer, but it's not going to be a necessarily better life. So I think that's you got to weigh that up, haven't you? You know,
It's all about balance, then, isn't it? At the end of the day, finding a balance.
And then, you know, most people are dying, I suppose, of, you know,
Not
things-
moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you know.
I guess you'd have to say that the life expectancy of a power athlete far outweighs the life expectancy of somebody who lives a sedentary lifestyle
Yeah,
and
or an
shit
obese
diet.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I don't think you'd have to check stats.
it just depends. Because they do say that it's better to obviously train and try and keep as much muscle as you can, but a super jacked bodybuilder and a 70-year-old guy who's trying to maintain lean muscle to have some life quality, and well, they're completely different things, you know. Like carrying around an extra 20 kilos of muscle is not normal, you know.
No.
So you can't
a lot of
compare
strain
that
on the
to-
system.
So you don't want to start spreading the message that if you're training to get bigger, it's going to shorten your life expectancy. But yeah, if you're jacked and, you know, lifting incredibly heavy weights and
Well, you fit that criteria. Like, yeah, and I'm just saying that as an honest thing. Like, for you, like I'm putting myself into where you are now with your life and reflecting back on the loads that your body has been put under, the steroids, and then now with the cancer scare, to look back at that and think, taking the quality of that life that you enjoy, because obviously you're passionate about it, and then now, if there was a potential relation between that approach to your training shortening your average lifespan, do you look back at that? Would you change anything, or do you just love it?
Yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah, it's like that classic thing they did with the Olympic athletes where they said you could take a pill and you win a gold medal and you'll die in 10 years. And I think 78% of them or something said,
Yes.
give me the pill.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So I think, no, I don't have any regrets on that. Yes, quality versus quantity, you know.
Yeah.
And just living the life you want, you know. So, but you got to think if it might be different if I had kids,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I had things like that. Then you're looking at well maybe I'd even approach my issue with the prostate differently if I had those kind of things, you know. But I don't. So
You can't know until,
yeah. But I definitely think there's a big difference between training to be healthy and have a reasonable amount of lean muscle and being a bodybuilder is completely different. They're extremes, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
So all people should be weight training because that's going to help them live longer. But training to be a bodybuilder and having a massive amount of muscle, probably
different. Yeah.
not. Yeah. Any sport, any extreme sport, or you look at anyone who's been an elite athlete,
Trade off.
later on in life, they're walking around a bit funny or they're suffering in some way or other from that, you know.
Pushing the body to the limit.
There's consequences to everything you do in life, isn't there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You got to accept that. Or you live in cotton wool and in fear, you know? And you don't want to do that, do you?
No.
Yeah.
So, just now getting on, we probably want to wrap it up. We're talking like, let's say if we had like 3 main takeaways for somebody who just wants to build some lean muscle mass. What are your three big keys?
Yeah, again, just be consistently training.
Consistency,
Yeah, consistency. Trying to get stronger.
strength,
And having a healthy diet.
nutrition.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they and just keeping it simple, you know. Not trying to do a whole heap of complex stuff and just consistently pushing yourself, recovering well, and being healthy. You know, I think. But one thing people tend to think about is, if I do cardio, it compromises my weight training. Well, I think your cardiovascular system's a system of the body, so if it's running well and helping you to be healthier, to me that's going to help you to be bigger. You know? Don't try and section off systems of the body. Think of the body as a whole. And the more healthy the body is as a whole, again, especially
More
for a
responsive
natural
it is.
person, the better off you're going to be in whatever you're trying to do in life.
Nice.
Yes.
So let's say somebody wants to, Chad, you do some online work with anybody, or is it just you have specific client base, or?
Yeah, pretty much with anybody.
Yeah.
I do weight loss, to athletes, to a lot of stuff with personal trainers.
Yeah, so training trainers,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
yeah.
How would someone get in contact with you?
I've got a Facebook page, Body Smart Training Systems International, and Instagram, Chad Body Smart Trainer.
There you go. Get on it. Get a follow on there. And I know that you're dropping a few little knowledge bombs here and there, so there's always some good stuff floating around on your account.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I help some people to understand a little bit about what it takes to put on a bit of size, and happy to come out and visit you guys. It seems like you're doing a good thing out
Yeah,
here.
thanks for coming out.
Yeah, no problem.
Good. Awesome, Chad. Thank you for your time, and I'm sure that whoever's listening is going to take a couple of good little tips there, and the insight into your life is also very nice of you to share that with us.
Yeah, cheers, bro. No problem.
Thanks a lot, Chad. Appreciate it.